the bindery in Milan. Then after that, we are off to Milan to basically discuss the book, how that was. And there's one thing that we also wanted to do that was special is the collector's edition. So we had in mind that again that was a 3 chapters. So instead of tipping in only one print, we had in mind to basically put 3 prints, one print from each chapter. And then instead of having this tipped in image, is basically making a fold, is a folio that would basically be open. And that started to basically create a lot of basically concern for the binary. And then, yeah, why don't you tell us maybe
Well,
one of
we did push there were some discussions in Italian. Oliver and I stood there literally for a half an hour while Italian just went back and forth at the bindery. And we started to worry a little bit. And then every now and then Giuseppe would reassure us, no, it's going fine, it's going fine. And it was this debossing, or is that embossing, Kate? Anyway, the inset of those letters in that size, that they weren't sure whether they could succeed doing it. But we were very reassured because they had printed the sumo books for Taschen.
Mm-hmm.
And so we thought, no, if anybody can do it, these guys can.
Yeah. And then they got a little bit concerned because we basically use different material for the collector's edition versus the limited edition. So the collector edition had the letter there. So Geir started to smell the book, and they started to get a little bit concerned there, right? Geir smelling the book. And then so the idea is basically to put a little bit of letter, the emphasis of the people that would buy the collector edition.
Well, let me jump in, Oliver, and just say the sensual nature is what we were trying to express to them. We don't want this book just to look good. We want it to feel good in your hand. We even want it to smell good. We want it to be the sensualness of what Oliver experienced in those places with the animals, the people, the environment. How do we do that?
And then it came down there that you can see that folio there it's probably about, if I look at it, it's about 40 inches wide, or maybe even a little bit more when it's fully basically flattened out. Yeah. And then the thing is, they came to us and he said, you know what, in Italy, we don't have sheets that are that big to basically make a single piece of letter to just basically cover your images. The other thing that also we brainstormed was about how to tie the images there. So just this elastic band there, right, which we thought that should be really easy to find, became kind of something that also was basically looking at all the stores and then finding this elastic band. And eventually what we did is, to protect all the images, is I printed some vellums. I printed the spirit, heart, soul on vellum, so that is placed on the top of the image on that collector's edition there. So everything worked out kind of really, really well. Is the thing that had basically influenced everything there was the weight, because we started to add better and better material. So initially is we had only about a 3.5-inch cardboard for the book. So then we increased, and it was this big weight that how would be shipped that, and would that still fit in the container that we had booked to get back home.
Those little things were critical, weren't they, Oliver? Because it was that bowing we saw because of the size, and we had to go to that next level up.
So there were some moments there. You can see with the box there too is, let me go back, just some little detail on the design. That opening that we had with the box, because it became so heavy, right? The box is over 10 pounds there, the collector's edition box, that we had to reinforce the box. But it was really critical for us that we would see basically the name on the side of the book. So some design that the last minute design that we had to make when we're in Italy there. So meanwhile, we were back in the US, and it was all about preparation time now. So the preparation time took about 2 months, and then I feel that it was a little bit short, right? Because there was a lot of I did all the framing, the promo, the planning, is the timing for the exhibit, and then is I had an exhibit that we had planned to start on December 15th. So is one thing to remember when you work with Italy is you do not want to work with Italy during summertime. So everything got squeezed between September, October, November there, what we did. And then what it meant is, again, a lot of printing that I did for the exhibition. So Geir, who was the curator of the first show, is now had to sequence based on a wall surface, not on the on basically the book sequence. But really, the idea was to make a uniform and then get people already kind of preemptively buy some of the books there. So I had quite a few meetings at my studio where people came and they were all excited and they wanted to see basically what would happen, right, with that book. So, and then eventually it was all about promotion. How do I make a promotion so that it would not be just one exhibit, but how could that exhibit keep traveling? And then I made with Kate. Kate basically helped me out in designing the promotion booklet. And there's one thing that we did that was actually very, very smart, because again, we printed all the promotion material at the book size. And then, so when we were done with all the printing of the book, we did basically one more series of print for the booklet. So now the people that were receiving the promo material had already the feel of what the book was like, and then the quality of the exhibit. And eventually, the pallets arrived at my studio. That was about 8 pallets. And then when you get those 8 pallets of books, it's time to sign the book. So to these days, I'm still signing books. I'm still numbering all the books there. And then we were ready for the show. And then the show was pretty much the exhibit is what I call the climax there. So the exhibition there is now it has been going on for about 18 months, and there is still about 3 shows that I have scheduled, and then we're looking at more shows. But let me give you some ideas of what we went through in terms of the exhibit. And then, Gear, why don't you talk maybe a little bit about what we did at Photo Central there, right? What was the idea about creating that model that would replicate every other
I'm just
place?
going to say, because we have about 10 minutes, if you have questions
Yeah.
and you want to put them in the chat
Yeah.
while Geir and Oliver, and when we finish up
This was critical for us as a public program for over 35 years, integrating our own local community that touches to these cultures that we could share. That's the Consul General for Mongolia there. And really communicating with the greater community at large to share the experience.
And we brought in animals from the Nature Center, the Sulphur Creek Nature Center, and had displays with the people come in and see that. We also, Oliver and I also did a day with Kids in Art, which is a kids cancer organization. So they came and saw the show, and then we had them make pictures with the show. And it was just a really special.
And that's gonna continue, right? I mean, we have hopefully the
Right.
Asian Art Museum event coming up.
And then basically we started to travel the show, went to Bloomington. Is same idea. We basically mixed with kids, shared a lot of then it was in Portland. We had a show in Portland at Camera Work. And then back to the Bay Area where we did pop up in Carmel. We did a big show in the Art Arc right before in San Jose, right before the pandemic hit. And then the thing is, we were very kind of creative in terms of finding ways to share that book with people. Book signing in New York. We did a few book signing in New York, and did also exhibit at academic places like Middlebury Institute, the Orange Coast College Museum, is, but nothing basically prepared us for the international exhibit. And then I did international exhibit in South America and then in Europe. So this is basically when I arrived in Lyon to go to Arles and then to exhibit at the at Arles. And then after that, that's when I was in Paris, when I exhibited in Paris at the Photo Fever. So you can imagine is a challenge of traveling with books that weighed about 5 pounds and collector edition that weighed about 12 pounds there.
As well as the prints in that case too. You were
Yeah,
transporting all
and then
those
the prints
images.
there too, right? It was a prints there. And it's the last part of the trip, we decided that we wanted two exhibit, one for North America and then one for Europe. And that was the last stretch where I basically loaded the car and then drove the exhibit from Paris to my parents in Switzerland. And then you remember, like, the what we had in mind was to make an award-winning book, and it really paid off as we basically got awarded nine award for best photography book of 2019. The And now what is next about the project? We're making a movie that's going to be the soul of the Burkichki. Is going to be features at the Asian Art Museum sometime soon, hopefully, like this summer or maybe early next year. And there is basically more exhibit that have been lining up. So I think collaboration is that's what basically made that project there, right? Is that collaboration is, as we said, we did it. But really, if I look at some quotes from some people basically that have basically look at the book, purchase the book, is one, it's really one that is really good to understand is from Phil Zimmerman. He's a bookmaker and photography professor at the Arizona State University. Just to give you an idea, his book collection is over 15,000 books there. So here's what he says about Cultures in Transition. It's one of the most beautiful printed black and white photography books that I have ever seen. The blacks are so velvety black and the detail in the highlights so lightly but clearly defined that this book stands as a monument to how far we have come in the reproduction of photographic prints in the last 50 years. So from a person that owns over 15,000 books, that was kind of a pretty good to hear about this quote. So thank you for listening. Well, looking forward to all of you having the book in your hands at one point. And then remember, there's not that many left there. So thanks again. And then